I swear we didn't pay her to say anything.
No, not at all.
Post-pod!
Oh,
That came out of nowhere. That's a zinger.
honestly, this is the most fun that I have on this whole podcast. It's just, I don't know, trying to make each other laugh. It works all the time.
It works all the time, yeah.
Where do we start with Yasmeen?
Well, it's funny because like I go into many of these conversations with our guests with trying to, approach it without being influenced with my own idea and
For sure.
thoughts on topics, right? And I have to admit, going into this conversation, I struggled with the delineation or the difference between, say, a product marketer and maybe a more traditional marketer in the context, even though there's still a lot of I can still see some similarities there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she did a good job really showcasing the differences and some of the struggles a product marketer may have in their day-to-day versus someone that's maybe just working in marketing, even in a consumer setting too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it can't be easy trying to navigate all the nuances, all the product rollouts, especially if, again, assuming this is like a product that is constantly changing its feature sets, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is a unique skill set that you have to navigate, and where you have to work really, really, really close with the product managers to try to bring to life, in the best case scenario, the product itself that you're trying to service. So I think there are nuances now, or at least I can see them a lot clearer than I probably did going into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, first of all, I love chatting with her. She's super fun.
She's great.
Yeah. And I really like the framework that she has: market validation, framing the message, delivering the message. It's kind of a simplified version of, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just simplified version of that marketing land thing that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But it's a similar process and a similar discipline, and I that's what I like about it. Well, it is almost the same process, but so I like that because the discipline, and she talked about this too, like where she's getting sign off on her steps. Like, you don't want to skip to just running ads before you understand the product. Like, that's a good idea, or understand the customer needs. And so, like, following the order of market validation, framing the message, delivering the message. There's instances, especially like the one you brought up, where you have an existing product that's already in the market, and you're having to fly the plane while you're fixing it. You still have to have an order, a sequence. Like, you might need to keep things running, but you need this other system running in the background, which is do the market validation, frame the message, deliver the message, if you're going to improve or change anything.
Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, when I wonder, is product marketing the truest form of marketing? Hear me out here. In the context that, you know what, you're working with. Wait a second.
You saw my face.
I saw your face. It went like. Yeah. You're trying to develop a communication strategy, if you will, for a product that is either just being launched or it's kind of at the beginning. So you're leaning heavily into a lot of the customer research, right? Mm-hmm. And it should likely inform much of your decision making over the course of, I don't know, the iterations of your product. I don't know if that 2-3 years or whatever it is. I would venture to assume here, and I don't have the data to back this up, the reason why product marketers is maybe the truest form of marketing is because you're working a lot closer with what the consumer is telling you that needs. You're working with product development at the same time to try to bring those features to life. Then you're trying to think about a more, a communication strategy to make sure now you can amplify that feature set across a target audience. So I feel like you're taking real time, maybe not real time, that's the wrong word. You're taking signals from the market. It's basically looking at the product, evolving the product at the same time, versus more established organizations where it's almost like on cruise control a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's more about then just building the awareness of the product suite, potentially, like insert here Salesforce, where it's just talking about Salesforce versus then all the different unique products. So that's kind of where I was going with, being a true marketer, in the context that you're really working with the data and you're trying to inform product at the same time.
I get your point. I think my head, as you were saying that, was thinking about the role of the product marketer that we were talking about. Well, we talked about this in with Yasmeen just now about market research and who you're asking for
Right.
research from, and understanding their context of where that information is coming from.
Yeah.
So let's say in our case, we're doing market research on product marketing.
Yeah.
So Yasmeen is our uh, market research person that we're reaching out to, our marketer that we're researching, essentially.
Yeah.
So in the context of where she's coming from and the way she's positioning project or product marketing, to me, is very heavily invested on the startup side
That's
of
fair.
product marketing. And so the way I interpret what you were saying about the purest form of marketing might be product marketing. In some ways, I believe that to be true, because you're bringing a new product to market. Is that kind of where you're going with that? Like, am I interpreting that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because the influence, like, you have to get so many things right. If you think about any product that comes to market, for it to actually succeed over the course of, the 3, 5, 10 years or whatever it is, there's so many things that need to happen for it to be successful. It
Sure.
has to be something that differentiates. We talked about being different or differentiating. We talked about, is there a void in the market? How is the consumer perceiving that void? What should be done? The message that you eventually go out to market with, can people, resonate with it or relate to that? How
Yeah.
can you become distinct? So then becoming memorable and build those mental structures, like all those things need to happen for a product essentially to stand the test of time, essentially. So when you're bringing a product to life for the first time, there's a lot of things there's no history you can work with.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, on that front, I think you're forced to follow that discipline of market validation,
That's
framing the
fair.
message, and delivering the message. Whereas an established company, like you brought up, Salesforce, or pick any established company like Microsoft, Amazon, whatever,
Apple.
like, you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
need to reiterate the thing, to your point, that Salesforce is for sales management pipeline, or maybe I'm missing the positioning a little bit, but
Exactly.
it's like, and then they throw in things
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Slack and all those other things that are just elements of that, or like all the other tools and features and benefits, but the main messaging is really around, like, who, our name, and who it's for, and the problem we solve.
Exactly.
But they've
Yeah.
established that already, and so they know it's the fit, right? Because
Yeah.
they have thousands and thousands of customers that are using it for that exact reason. So
Exactly.
in a startup, you don't have that history. And so you're
No.
trying to find it. You're trying to find that fit with the product, but
Yeah.
also with the messaging and the way that it's the
The
visualizations and the
positioning,
communications, and all that stuff. The pitch decks, everything is website, all of that is part of.
everything.
hmm So you have to do that because it didn't exist before. So in a
Yeah.
sense, I agree with you. Like, you are forced to be a true marketer, because big M marketer, not just small M marketer that just runs ads.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, she made this point. It's not trying to find the quickest way to go and put ads out there. The
Right.
ads is like essentially the byproduct of everything else, the foundation that you've laid. It's not the first thing you should be thinking about. And I would venture to, and this, I wish we had more time with her, but I would venture to guess that a lot of executives and senior individuals or senior thought leaders in an organization may think, well, just put an ad out talking about this feature, and that's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But to get to that point, it's have we done the right research? Have
Mm-hmm.
we surveyed the right individuals? Do we have the right signals to suggest that, yes, this is the feature we should be working on?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a fascinating space when I think about it. I've never had the opportunity to work at a startup, so I don't know
Mm-hmm.
from firsthand. But just speaking with other individuals, and even Yasmeen's insights today, it calls for a very, very, um, you have to be very thick skinned, I think, to take on a role like that from a product marketing perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's differences, but like same but different in some ways, though. In that,
Mm-hmm.
um, like you and I both worked for an established company, Sport Check, trying to promote everything under the sun,
Everything
and then you
under
have
the sun.
different. Rather than say the product manager who's got a new feature, we had, let's just say, a footwear VP that's got a new shoe that's got to drop. And so there's
Yeah.
thousands of new shoes every week, right? So there's same, like different but same in the sense that there's all these new things that are always happening in a business of any size.
Yeah.
And so trying to coordinate and collaborate with it's different people with maybe different titles, but I think there's still a lot of similarities there.
Of course.
You know what I mean? The one thing I thought was interesting that, well, there were a whole bunch of things where I thought were interesting, but just the coordination of all those people together.
Yeah.
Um, I had this flashback of, I always have this flashback of Moneyball, the movie,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
book, movie, whatever. But there's that scene where like they're doing terribly. They've already like put the team together. They brought them in for specific reasons, but they never told them why they were
Nobody
there.
told them to.
Right, so
Yeah.
they're all these guys that are stepping on the field trying to be heroes and individually,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until they were like, oh, fuck, we're losing, we need to do something different, they're like, maybe we should talk to them. And then they
Yeah.
set clear expectations of, okay, I forget all the names of the players and whatnot, but like, we brought you on because you get a lot of RBIs, you get guys
Yeah.
on base, that's all we need you to do, because that will generate the opportunities for scoring, and then when we have
Yeah.
this guy who's like the heavy hitter, he'll knock
Yeah.
them all in, we can score. So like, nobody had to do more than what they were supposed to do. They just didn't know what they were supposed to do and how they were going to work together as a team. So I think
Totally.
that always is a flashback to me in terms of like managing teams of teams toward a common goal and making sure that everybody's aware of that common goal and their role in it.
Right. And she talked about, like Yasmeen talked about, the communication, and sometimes not only the lack. I didn't expect this. I was genuine in that, because a lot of these organizations, they're not very large. So you would just assume that there's really strong communication, there's strong direction and whatnot. But I'm sure, just like every other organization, it will at some point suffer from some level of silos, some level of miscommunication, or not clear direction or vision. And that creates sometimes this, going back to your analogy, it's like, why are we here?
Yeah.
What is it that exactly that you need me to do today, so to speak? And
Yeah.
the prioritization exercise, I think, is also something that she was very, very thorough on, or at least it seems like she's very thorough on, to say, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just doing customer research, it's about understanding churn, it's about understanding all these elements.
Mm-hmm.
So then, by documenting that and saying, here's all the steps or all the things I need to do under customer research, so
Mm-hmm.
no, you can't have this next week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like,
Totally.
and I think that's so important, that you kind of make sure that you're creating that safe distance that you need
Yeah.
to actually operate and
Yeah.
bring to life a product into the market.
Yeah. Well, and again, going back to the context of where that was coming from, I know she's a consultant. And so,
Yeah.
as a consultant, scope creep is really problematic.
Dangerous.
But that's also true for employees, full-time employees. And I think in some way, I think it's such a beautiful um, example in that, we should also be managing our own day to day, even as a full-time employee, like
Totally.
a consultant, being protective of our time because we're being asked to do something specific. And then if all of a sudden you're just responding to the fires every day, then you can't actually deliver on the thing that you were originally brought on to do. And it, that's just not a happy situation for anyone.
It's funny, because every time, she mentioned that a couple times, and my mind went back to one of our old bosses, where it's like, real time, right time marketing. I'm like, where are you today? Um, where, it's like, if you're constantly reacting, that means that well, there's generally, you don't have a strong enough like direction yourself. right?
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for the market to dictate. While I do appreciate that you do need to be somewhat flexible and malleable,
Sure.
if you will. But I think just reacting, and I've been in those settings, and it burns teams out. It burns people out because it's going back to, well, who are we? What do we stand for? And
Mm-hmm.
why aren't we forcing others to change to what we do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, how do we position ourselves? And that's where, again, it goes back on the shoulders of the marketers, because it's our responsibility to kind of build out that space for us in a market where we
Mm-hmm.
can say, you know what, I don't need to respond to that pricing action because my brand's strong enough. There is already awareness that we have A, B, C, D, E. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to conform to that in this moment.
Yeah,
It's a huge responsibility, though.
totally. We should do a thing on real-time advertising or real-time marketing, because that we both lived that for a while.
We did. We did.
One thing though I did want to touch on, again, the same but different idea. Like she talked about product marketers being mid to lower funnel.